Welcome to Read Spec with us. I'm Hemant,
And I am Abhash.
and today we will be looking into the map function on arrays. Abbas, let's say we have an array of say 1, 3, and 5. Okay, then we can do a map over it, and which takes a callback, and we pick up the value from it and multiply it by 2. We're just doubling all the elements. So we got 2, 6, 10. Nothing fancy
Right.
here. We did get 2, 6, 10 as a new array. Say Abbas, we have a calc object with two methods in it, f and g, and f invokes g with this.g and passes the value that f receives, and g basically doubles the value and returns, right? Now if you were to map it, say we have 1, 2, 3 and we need to map, we will say calc of how about calc of f, right? This
Mm-hmm.
dot is not a function.
Right. Oh, I would have expected this should work the same way that it worked for the previous one. But yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, that's where the this args comes into action. Now we can pass calc, and now we have 246 because it knows what the execution context is, and in this case calc. So when it does calc.f, f internally calls g, and now this is bound to calc, and that's where this args plays an important role.
Right. So in the previous case, when you called if, this value was probably not correct, right? It was something like undefined or window, so it was not able to find G.
Exactly. The other
Mm-hmm.
interesting part here is if you say you have an array of 1, 3, 5 and you're trying to do a map, and you get the value, you get the index, and you get the array, and then say suppose you are pushing an element to the array, right? Say I push 10 to array, and then probably return doubling each value of that array, right? So I can do a value into 2, and it needs a return here. So what do you think will happen here, Abbas? What would be the value answer like?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is interesting because we are mapping through the same array and then also trying to modify the same array, right? So I would expect that because like we are increasing the length so many times, we are pushing more elements, maybe it will keep looping for a long time.
But no, we just have 2, 6, and 10. Why is this happening? Let's dive into the spec.
So now we are around the array.prototype.map section in the specification, and if you scroll down, this is the algorithm for it. So initially it says that it stores the initial length of the array. So it takes the length out of this original array. So O is like our original array. And then what it does is that we want to finally return a new array after calling dot map. So it is creating a new array A here, right? So O is our old array, A is our new array. And what we basically want to do is when we loop through the old array, we want to basically add new elements to the new array and return that.
Hey Abbas, so on per the algorithm on the point 2, the length is calculated only once, and in point number 6, we have a while loop running through that length. So
Right.
this kind of explains why the array didn't reflect when we did array.push, because the length was already calculated and we did a push inside of map, which will not affect the length anymore.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, instead of checking the array.length, like the life length on every iteration, we stored the initial length and use that for all of the steps. Cool. So this is our while loop, and so it has an index k, right? And this k, as long as it is less than the initial length, it will continue. And so what it initially does is that it will check if that index exists on the original array, right? So it will check has property O is our original array and pk is the index key, right? So if the original array has that element, then it will call the callback function. So our callback function was whatever was the function we passed to .map, right? Our thisArg was an optional argument. So if we look above, thisArg will be either undefined if you don't pass it, or if you have passed actual object, that will be the value. And these are the three, these are the three inputs that gets passed to the callback function, right? So k value means basically the element value in the old array, k means the index, and o means the whole old array, right? So these are the three arguments that get passed. And even if you look into the definition of call, that's exactly what it says. It uses these parameters to actually call the function. And finally, when you call the function, right, we get a new value. So when you call like when you call a function where it does v into 2 and returns that, then that doubled value is the new map value, right? And then it sets that new value on the new array, right? So if you check here, what it's basically doing is that a is our new array. On that specific index, it is setting that new value. So finally, when it has gone through all the elements and the new array is prepared, and it will just finally return the new array.
Yeah, but interestingly, if you notice on 6.c, it says if k present is true, then only do all of this. That means if an array has holes in it, it just ignores it and then sets k to k plus 1.
Right. And then what will happen in the final array if my original one has holes?
The final will also have holes.
True. Yeah. I guess we are skipping over that element, so we are also not setting that element on the new one. Yeah.
Because in point number 4, a is already created, considering o as the original array to that length. So we already would have the holes in it as well. But the holes are not considered in 6.c. That's why the holes are still maintained. Hope this was interesting, and we will dive more into map and map likes in the next coming episodes. Thank you.